Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes and welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, and today we're going to talk about a book that's not for just looking at, like some of the books that I've talked about in the past, and it's not so much for just reading through the way a novel or collection of short stories would be. This is a cookbook, and yes, of course, Cooking Wizardry for Kids is a cookbook for kids, but it's more than just a bunch of easy recipes for kids. First of all, these are real recipes. This isn't a book which teaches you how to make a peanut butter sandwich by getting 2 slices of bread and a knife and peanut butter and putting peanut butter on bread and then going, ooh, I've gone cooking. This has recipes for all sorts of things. This has recipes for corned beef. This has recipes for making elephant ears. This has recipes for pancakes. This has recipes for sourdough bread. But this has more than just recipes. This is a book that has, and we'll look at the table of contents for that, this is a book, it has safety and cleanup rules. And those are all of the rules that we probably all should follow in the kitchen, though we don't always, about, making sure that you don't cut vegetables on a cutting board you've just used for raw meat. This is reminding you to be careful when putting the lid on things like mixers. This has supermarket secrets, which is talking about marketing. This is a book that tells you about marketing. It tells you that the little secrets and hints, like the fact that no-name brand rice is just as good as brand name rice and cheaper, but that some no-name things are, in fact, ends and bits and pieces and aren't as good. And, and it advises kids to think about what it is that they're looking at when shopping, about what it is that they're doing when they're buying stuff. Your Own Food Factory, that has a lot of recipes for things that kids might think only come from the supermarket. Now, there is, of course, the unfortunate trend of kids to not realize that beef comes from a cow, which is an actual animal, and that the process of making beef involves taking a cow and killing the cow and chopping it up into pieces. It is a thought that can be very, very disturbing and upsetting, although it is one that kids should know. But there's also the idea that macaroni and cheese only comes in boxes. What? You can't make macaroni and cheese. And so there are recipes in this for making your own soda pop, or fizzy drink, or whatever you call it in your local regional dialect. I don't know. Or you could do what my grandmother did and call all soda pop things ginger ale, which confused everybody when she said, "Would you like some ginger ale? I have Coke." Think about that one. There are science experiments, and these are real science experiments. These are real things that the most important thing that they do is they help kids understand the interaction between what science is between acids and bases and cooking and how all of these things work, and it helps them see a practical link between abstract science and things that they actually do in their lives. So taste bud experiments, quick science experiments, and food puzzlers, these are 3 chapters that, while they have minimal numbers of actual recipes in them, what they have in them is something that tells you about how to understand the science of cooking. Grow Your Own is a thing that's advising kids learn how to grow their own lettuce and grow their own vegetables and that sort of thing, which if nothing else, a parent could probably use to try to get their kids into gardening if they were interested in it. Make up your own secret recipes. Most of the secret recipes aren't, they're not complicated. They're not, here is the, you know, it's not esoteric. What it is it's to give kids the idea that cooking is more than just a set of staid directions on a page, that you can change things and alter them and adapt them if you have preferences. Make your own favorite restaurant foods is kind of like your own food factory, in that there are a lot of kids who don't really believe that you can make a pizza at home, for example. That if you want pizza, you order it from the pizza place, which has the specialized pizza making stuff. But make your own favorite restaurant foods. It has a recipe for pizza dough, and it tells you how to make a pizza. Foods to punch, twist, shape, and design is foods that you can get your hands dirty with. Foods that look like something or someone. That there are just so many different aspects of cooking and aspects of what cooking is about that you're given an introduction to in this. And of course, conversion tables and the glossary of techniques at the end. Feed the animals, for the record, is recipes so that you can, make food for your cat at home if you want, and then you can spoil your cat with, homemade cat food. So there's a lot of these sorts of things. So here's a page of directions, and you can see these are all of the basic directions. On the opposite page, which you will not see, includes the direction of read the whole recipe before you start. But here, when you're preparing ingredients, wash, chop, and otherwise prepare them before you begin cooking. Always good advice. Advice that many of us, including me, never follow. It tells you exactly how to crack an egg. It gives you the technique of how to crack an egg. And for kids whose parents don't cook, for kids who maybe don't want mom hanging over your shoulder when you're trying to do this, it has all of these things. It has the reminders on how to prevent food spoilage, and it even tells you how to defrost food. The one thing is, this book was published in 1990, so the one warning I have about it is that microwaves have become significantly more powerful since the early 90s, and so it would be worthwhile to remember that all of these microwave directions, you have to sort of say this needs to be done at a fraction of the heat, a fraction of the strength, a fraction of the time, because the microwave will otherwise cause something to explode. And all throughout this book are these cute little illustrations. And you see, supermarket secrets, grocery store, how can you tell real costs? Can you tell the difference between real and fake? How do they convince people to buy particular foods? This has social science and psychology experiments in it for kids. This is how to look at it and to realize how the supermarket is trying to manipulate you into buying stuff you don't need. This is a reminder to kids that fruit drink is not the same as fruit juice. All of that stuff, that's what goes into this chapter, and it's a really, really great one for introducing kids to those concepts. Make your own all-purpose mix project. I would recommend this book for adults, because if you're an adult who has kids who are likely to come home saying, Mom, I need you to bake 83 cookies for me for tomorrow, this is an all-purpose mix. This is like this really is the same as the mixes that you get on the shelves of a grocery store, only you make it yourself, and you can then say you totally baked it from scratch, because you totally did. You just, took one afternoon to mix all of this together months before and kept it in the freezer. So you can store the mix up to 6 months or even longer in the freezer. quick kitchen science experiments. Again, these illustrations are really, really cute. They'll be good for, kids to have some visual things to make this look more fun than a giant wall of text. Because, some kids, they get faced with a giant wall of text and they find it a little bit daunting. As you can see, I used this book because I liked making the muffins, and on the other side of this page is the actual recipe for muffins. The Bake Your Own Fancy Muffins project is actually one of those things that in the Make Your Own Secret Recipe section, this is showing you how people make things more exciting. You have your basic muffin recipe, and then this explains, here's how you make blueberry muffins. And it shows you how to add the cup of blueberries when you mix them in. For cranberry muffins, it shows you what you do with cranberries, and the suggestion you can also put in chopped walnuts or pecans. It says it reminds you need to increase the sugar in the recipe. It talks about how to make apple muffins. What this does is it says, all recipes, you start that you can make them into your own thing. It gives you this advice. It gives you these tips and hints and tricks, and it's really, really tremendous. It gives you a hint and trick about how to make the summer sailboat cake, as in bake a regular cake, and then it shows you how to cut this up, how to cut it apart, so that you can make it into something, so that you can look at this and you can see that that they have taken this rectangular cake and made it into a sailboat, which gives kids the idea of small changes they can make to be creative with cooking. Again, it's just so useful. I have a lot of pictures, so I'm going to probably start racing through it because I have very little time left, all things considered. Holiday Surprises is part of the book where you start getting out of the science of marketing, you start getting out of the science of chemistry, you start getting out of the science of psychology. This is talking about history. This has recipes where they tell a completely apocryphal story about where jack-o'-lanterns come from. But that's okay because, let's be honest, folktales are part of cultural history as well. So here, this is a picture of Noah parting the Dead Sea. There's a fish that's being flung around. There's a fish that's dying. I assume those are shells. And this is from a charoset recipe, which is something that comes up in the Jewish holiday of Passover, Pesach. And so there's a recipe for that. By the way, it makes a really, really good toast spread, if you're wondering. So that's my recommendation. And it includes a bit of an explanation for Kwanzaa. It includes an explanation for Fat Tuesday. It includes a little story for just all kinds of things. And what it does is it gives you an item of food to cook in relation to a particular holiday and just talks about it a little. This is from the next section because it has cultural foods. Now, I'm not going to speak to the genuine accuracy of the empanadas because I've never really been a massive fan of Hispanic, South American, Mexican, south of the U.S. border food. It's just never really done much for me overall. So I won't speak to whether or not the empanada recipe is hugely accurate, but here's the thing. What it does is it suggests to kids that there's more food than the stuff your mom makes. This bagpiper is from the shortbread section where it reminds us that shortbread is a Scottish thing. And this last one, story of Johnny Appleseed and a bunch of apple recipes. So I can't recommend this book highly enough for anyone who's looking for easy, quick recipes or to convince a kid that that kid should start cooking.